Joining us for this special fireside chat is Craig Erlich, Chief Operating Officer of CRE Realty and former member of the Board of Directors, having served side by side with Ambassador Rakolta. Craig, take it from here.
Thank you, Derek. Good afternoon. And on behalf of everyone in this room, the entire state of Michigan, our country, both domestically and internationally, thank you, John, for everything that you do. Thank you. As you can imagine, with this group here, there are probably 100,000 questions that they'd like to ask and know, and so I'm going to apologize in advance if I move through them quickly. What I'd like to start out with is a little bit about what you were talking about, the population, and specifically, if you could share with us, why has the population stagnated in Michigan? What's the primary reason behind that? And as a member of the council, how will that be attacked?
So we all have our viewpoints on this because it's a very complex formula as to what's really going on. A lot of it has to do with these, we're auto-centric, and our auto industry has slowly moved away from the state. We haven't until just recently had a brand new assembly plant in 40 years. There's been 25 new assembly plants built in the southern part of the United States. And when you see the depth and the breadth of how important the auto industry is, you begin to see that these jobs, and they're no longer blue-collar jobs. These kind of jobs are now what we call gray-collar jobs, bending upon white-collar jobs. There's no heavy lifting in plants anymore. Now you need really technical, smart people who can write computer software, who can write a decent memo, who can understand the statistical processing that goes on in measuring the quality of a part or a final product. So that's point number one. Point number two is that when you see how these states compete for these jobs, whether it's an auto job or something else, is a fine line between winning and losing. Just think about the recent NBA finals. You win a game, work hard for 60 minutes, and the final shot wins. And so I translate that into the difference between winning and losing is 1 or 2%. If you don't have the talent to provide these companies with what they need, they're going to go to where the talent is. And it isn't just about graduation rates. It's about the curriculum. It's about what the community college curriculums look like. We have great universities, but a lot of those people leave Michigan because there aren't the job opportunities here. That's number two. Number three is we have this opportunity for climate change right now. Michigan's got more fresh water than probably any place in the world. You can't believe the amount of water that's needed in these various manufacturing processes. And we have an opportunity to exploit that right now. So it's complex. There are many, many reasons. I'm sure the audience can come up with 5 or 6 that I haven't mentioned. But we need to come together. And I believe as you have the answers. Why the youth are leaving this state is, because Zed was just up here saying, I'm going national. I'm spending the most of my time out in the Southwest. I can't tell you how many times I hear that over and over and over again. And the aging population has a lot to do with this. We are an aging population in the state of Michigan, and we're not going to turn this around in the next year or two. Elderly people require more services. They take more percentage of the health care, and the youth end up leaving. So we've got all these things going on at the same time, and if we could just come together a little bit more and bipartisan and leave some of the social issues outside of the room and really talk about the competitiveness of the state. And by the way, taxes are not that big a deal. We're the 16th least tax state in the union. People aren't leaving or coming because of taxes. There are more fundamental reasons.
How is it affecting the demographics of the state, both from you talked about the aging population, but also politically in terms of our representation in Washington?
Well, as I said before, our representation's less today. I mean, we're 13, used to be 19. We hold very few committee seats. Our voting patterns are we're lurching from left to right to left to right. The committee assignments in Washington, whether on the House or the Senate side, have a lot to do with seniority. As you move up the ladder, we're going to lose our most senior senator this year, Debbie Stabenow. We're going to have a junior senator come in. Every time this happens, we lose a little bit of clout. And, we find ourselves in the position that we're in today.
Okay. So to switch topics, if we could, the Industrial Revolution, which none of us were here to experience, really built the Midwest and the Northeast. Today we're experiencing an EV revolution, and that is heading south, and in large part by some of the things that you discussed. Can you talk a little bit about why
Sure,
that's
so let's
happening?
talk about what the EV revolution is. It is the biggest thing that happened to the auto business since the invention of the car. Think about the transition from horse to Model T. This is bigger because of the technology involved. In the car today, there's battery technology, which is just on its bleeding edge right now of the chemistry needed in order to get to 900-mile range. You have mobility, and that is the ability for the car to be connected to the rest of the world and all the things that you can do in a vehicle. And just think if it's automated, how you can sit there and it can actually be a mobile office. There's the software aspect of it and all of the software that's being worked on moving into artificial intelligence. So the car represents, the EV represents so much technology today that if you're not there to capture it, you're never going to catch up. So that's point number one. Point number two, the battery and the electric motor that drive the car is the powertrain of the future. It will replace the engine and the transmission. We have 15 transmission and engine plants in the state of Michigan. They directly employ 30,000 people, and if you use the economic multiplier, you can get up to 100,000 jobs in the state of Michigan are just in the powertrain aspect. If we don't have equivalent number of battery plants and electric motor plants coming to the state, we're going to lose a large portion of those. And so why are people going away? There are 50 reasons, but I'm going to give you the top 5. Do you have a site? They're not waiting. This thing is moving way too fast. You can't say, well, I can collect this land for you. So do you have a site? What are your electric rates? TVA is offering 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Other states are matching it. We fixed that. And by the way, we fixed a little bit of the site problem too. Number 3 is talent. And it's the entire talent pool, all the way from K through 12, right up through the worker. We built virtually every single Toyota plant in the country. And I went over to Toyota once in one of these famous trips, and I asked Toyota, tell me what the top 10 reasons why how you pick a state. And I thought they were going to say taxes and incentives. They didn't. The number one thing is work ethic. So I looked at the guy and I said, what do you mean work ethic? He said, there's a difference between wanting a job and appreciating a job and feeling you are owed a job. I said, what's number 2? He said, work ethic. I said, explain, what do you mean? He said, we have sophisticated ways of looking at absenteeism, alcoholism, and how important the job is to that person's livelihood. I said, what's number 3? Work ethic. And I won't go through the whole drill today, but every single one of the top 5 had to do with work ethic. We're not known as a state that has a strong work ethic. Okay? And so that's number 3. Number 4 is incentives. If you can make the short list, incentives are important. But you can't get to the short list unless you have these top 3. And you can't even make the long list if you're not viewed as a cohesive state where everybody's going to come together, and we're not. I'm in the business of picking sites for these companies. I can tell you that in virtually every single assignment that we work on, we have to work overtime to get Michigan to be part of the first 10 or 15 or 20.
Let's switch gears to your experience in the United Arab Emirates as an ambassador and give us a little view of what the UAE is like.
How many been there? Let me see. Not very many. It is one of the most fabulous spots on the face of the earth that you'll ever want to visit. It is literally brand new. And when I say brand new, I mean there isn't a building there that's over 40 years old. All right? 10 million people, only 1 million Emiratis. The other 9 million people are what we call expats, people from all over the world that have come to be part of the Emirati miracle. 2 giant cities, Dubai, which is well known, and which is lesser known, but is even bigger, is Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi and Dubai are the 2 of the wealthiest emirates. There are 7 of them, and they're basically a federation. Abu Dhabi is so wealthy that if you were to take the national, or I should say the emirate wealth, and divide it by the number of people, every person is worth $50 million. Their sovereign wealth funds all added up are more than $3 trillion. Their national oil company called ADNOC is half the size of Aramco, and it's probably worth $1 trillion to $2 trillion itself. They have investments all over the world, and they are one of the most tolerant societies you'll find on the face of the earth. And they're now embracing culture, education, art, freedom of religion. 10 of the 30 spots on the federal council are women. So they're making this slow march into modernity, as they would say it, and they only can go as fast as the social fabric of their million citizens will allow them to go. They're a beacon of modernity and the way the Middle East should be, and was the first country, obviously, to sign up to the Abraham Accords, which was an incredible journey that I had the privilege of being on. It was done in secret. There are only 15 people on the team. I was one of them. Top secret, could not talk to anybody about it, because we knew that if it leaked out, that the Arab League would force the president, Mohammed bin Zayed, to back away from it. So he had the courage to say, the day they find out will be the day I sign the deal. And so I encourage everybody to go there. You can go to Chicago and have a nonstop flight on either Etihad or Emirates Air, and experience both Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and it'll be the best 7 or 8 days you've ever spent. If you're a little bit more adventuresome, there's all kind of economic opportunity there. You better be good at what you do, because they have the best people from all over the world coming there. There's 400 class 4 to 5 star hotels right now spread out across the country. The only thing I would say you don't do is don't go there in June, July, or August. You have no idea what hot is. The heat index, I was laughing the other day, they were saying the heat index in Texas is 110 degrees, and they're asking everybody to go inside and to go outside. The heat index in the summertime in Abu Dhabi is 125, 130, 132. Humidity is always at 90, 100%. The temperature is always over 100, 105, 110 degrees. You add those two things together, you got real heat, by the way. But it was the experience of a lifetime. We don't have time to go into all the intrigue of getting there, what happens through Senate confirmation. The Iranians were not happy with me as the ambassador, and they put out a notice that ambassadors were fair game. My security detail was over 60 people. Of course, there's lots of shooting around the area. There's civil war in Yemen, which is 350 miles away. Iran was 150 miles to the east of my residence. But despite all of that, it was the most incredible experience of my life.
Well, John, we're running up against our time, so if I could ask you 2 more questions to close with. The first one, I'll ask you to dive into your crystal ball, and it's very applicable to everyone in this room, which is, will interest rates go higher? And then the second one is more personal, which is, will John Rakolta Jr., Ambassador John Rakolta Jr., ever retire?
Okay, well, let's take the easy one first. I don't understand what the word retire actually means, and so everybody has their own definition. Mine is that you basically stop, and you just, as long as you're healthy and your mind is sharp, I want to stay active and involved as long as I can in as many things as I can, including my business. We've made a very nice transition from my leadership to my son. I'm sure some of you know JR. He's currently the president, and things have gone very, very well. So that last question's, the answer is I'm not retiring. What was the first question?
The first question was for you to look into your crystal ball and tell us if interest rates are going higher.
Well, we have to talk about over what period of time, of course. So they're going to go higher between now and the end of the year for sure.
Okay.
I don't see even in the construction industry, inflation's leveled off, but I don't see it going to come down anytime soon. And when you see what's going to happen in the UAW negotiations, they're asking for a 30% increase. It's all going to filter into the final product. And so I think the Fed is going to, there are soft pockets, there's no question. I feel bad for people who own office buildings. I mean, you can talk about how tough a restaurant business is. Office buildings today are going to be particularly difficult. and you're going to see a lot of failures. The pricing, the new pricing on what an office building is worth hasn't gone through the economy yet. And so we're going to see, but not a lot. I don't know, 25 basis point rise, maybe 50 at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think, in spite of all of the criticism of Jerome Powell, I think he's a pretty sharp guy. And, so far, we've had somewhat of a soft landing unless you're in one of those unfortunate businesses that is really getting affected on what interest rates have done to the ultimate value of your asset.
Yeah. Before we let you go, one more question, because you have an amazing audience right here who can become enlisted in your mission. And so if there was something that this group could do to help you in the council and the population study and what we can help the state of Michigan, what is it that this group could do?
There are 4 work groups in the Population Council. Work group number 1 is K through 12. Work group number 2 is university and colleges. Work group number 3 is infrastructure and places. Work group number 4 is people and talent. Each one of those work groups needs a committee of somewhere between 10 and 15 people. So we are looking for 60 people who will make the commitment in August and September and part of July to work hard, to come forward in each one of those work groups with one strategic suggestion that the council will vote on it and take to the governor at the end of the year to incorporate into her agenda for 2024. So that's 4 big things that we'd like to come out of that. We'd also like the council to continue, if we can be bipartisan, if we can come up with 4 recommendations, if she can accept some of them, then we would say we're in business, and then we'd like to continue for the next 3 years of her administration, continue to work on the problems of Michigan and come together on bipartisan solutions. And then the biggest thing will be the next governor, if they were to see value instead of shooting arrows at each other all the time. And I'm not trying to take any of the competition out of the equation. I think competition is really good. But at the end of the day, if we can't come together and change the policies in the direction of the state, we're going to wake up in another 20 or 30 years, and we won't have 10, we'll probably still have 10 million people, but the country will be 400 million, and we won't have any more congressional seats, but we will lose 2 or 3 more, and our influence and our power will dissipate. And the biggest fear that I have is not the manufacturing, because we've lost a good part of the manufacturing. But my fear is that at some point in time, the back of the house, the technical aspects, the testing centers, the technical centers, the main offices, the accounting, marketing, staffs, all of a sudden start to dissipate. And we didn't even talk about work at home yet and what a big impact that has had, especially on back of office jobs and responsibilities, and how many of these things don't have to come down to work to do it. And you'll start to see that artificial intelligence. How many people have ChatGPT on their phone today? Gosh, I'm really surprised. That's not very many. So you can go on the Apple Store and you can put ChatGPT and download that app right now. You should do it and start asking it questions, and you will be absolutely amazed at the information that you can get out. Any question you want to ask it, that's not looking forward, that's basically a backwards looking question. It's astonishing. I've been using it for 4 or 5 months, and I could tell you a whole bunch of stories of sitting in the meeting and somebody makes a statement, and I go into my ChatGPT and I said, hey, this guy just said this. And it comes back and it says he's full of shit. So that artificial intelligence is going to change the world. And I don't believe the government can stop it myself. And so it's going to affect your industry. Walbridge already has 2 study groups looking how artificial intelligence is going to affect our estimating and our scheduling. And I'll close with this. Because I put one question, I said, what kind of question would you want to ask? And this is the one I put down there. What's the largest construction job Walbridge has ever done? It used to be when we would build a brand new assembly plant, it would be a $500 million contract. That was 4 years ago. That same thing today, plus the battery plant, my contract is $5 billion. And that's what's happening in the world. The exponential growth of everything is so massive, and the need for talent is so important that artificial intelligence is going to fill a lot of this gap. Thank you very much for coming.